Hi, this is Teresa LaFleur, your instructor for this course, and today we are discussing Chapter 2, which will be due this weekend. Chapter 2 covers the part of the medical billing cycle that includes patient check-in. There's a lot of information that happens during this time. We need to make sure that all standards of care are being followed. We need to make sure that the patient encounter, all the information is being taken at that time. So think back to the last time you were at the doctor's office and they got your name when you came in. You already had an appointment and a reason for being there. The nurse or nursing assistant came in and took your vital signs, your blood pressure, your temperature, all that type of thing. When your doc comes in, they're going to review any tests that were ordered, if there's any results back on those, and then they're talking about why you came in, what's your diagnosis, your plan of care, that type of information is all collected at that point. In addition to that is all your data, your address, your insurance information, your social, all that type of stuff is also collected at that point. So all your vital information is taken care of. Okay. There can be a lot of other stuff that talks about in here. So your records, your allergies, immunization records, just depending upon what you're being seen for and what type of physician is seeing you. SOAP, over here on the right hand side, you'll see that is a common form for documentation and medical records. Now, most of the time now, these are not written down. They're actually done through an EHR, and a lot of them are set up in this format. And what that means is the S stands for subjective, so that's what is the patient telling you. What symptoms does the patient feel? So if I was going in, let's say, and had a cold, I would say, oh, I have a runny nose, sore throat, my head hurts, my body hurts. Those are type of subjective information. The other next one is objective, and this is where the doc would do some exams and tests and look at you. So they may do a throat culture to figure out what's going on with your throat, or he's going to look in your ears and your nose and your mouth and see what's going on. Listen to your chest, these types of things. And they're quantifiable. The last one is the next to last is the assessment, and this is what the doc thinks is wrong with you. Okay? And then the last is the plan. So the plan means it takes the subjective, the objective, and the assessment, puts it together, and the plan is how are we going to treat you? Do you need antibiotics? Do you just need to go home and rest? That type of thing. That's a SOAP format. Evaluation management services. This is what you code for a doctor's visit. They're looking at the history and physical exam that you are given during your visit, looking at the chief complaint, the history and physical exam, diagnosis, and the treatment. This page is an example of what that would look like if it was in written form. Now remember, I said we use EHRs now, so we don't have paper charts anymore, so you wouldn't actually see this type of thing unless it was set up in this format on the EHR. And this is a screenshot from an EHR on what it might look like. As you can see, there are, looks like little files of different things on what it covers. And this is where your information would be stored in that EHR. It looks real similar to a paper filing cabinet, but it's just an electronic means. So what are some of the advantages to having an electronic record? And they are very, very handy. It does provide immediate access. You don't have to go track down a medical record somewhere, trying to figure out where it is, if it's lost, what happened to it. And that may be, very important if we're looking at an emergency situation. It also can do automated alerts and reminders, computerized physician order management. Physicians can order everything at one time through the computer, and everything takes care of it. It is sent out to all the different areas, or pharmacies, I should say. So think about it when you go to your physician, your doctor. There may be, if he has to order some medication for you, they always ask you who's your preferred pharmacy, and they'll just send it right in. That's the nice part about an EHR too. Patient support. I know the thing I like most about an EHR as a patient is I can go in through the patient portal and check my record, make sure, see what the results were on my tests, or if they've sent any other information to me. I can check all that through the patient portal. And it does have some administrative tools and reporting system that are really nice to use. Now let's look at some of the regulations as they pertain to healthcare, and probably the main one here is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, also known as CMS. They are a part of the Department of Health and Human Services, and they handle almost anything dealing with healthcare. If you don't remember anything else, you need to remember this, because you're going to have this coming out your ears when you start working in there, is learning about HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, excuse me. And this is to help with fraud and abuse, and to help protect your private information, your PHI. Pretty much anybody who deals with a healthcare entity is responsible for keeping that data safe, and that is part of the PHI information that they have. The Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, is the new health system that was signed into place, and this is where all Americans, or all U.S. citizens, must carry health care. The first year they put it in, I think it was last year, and there is a fine if you do not sign up for health care and you do not have any other way. It comes out with your taxes, I do believe. This first year it's pretty small, but from this point on, that fine starts doubling to where it gets humongous very quickly. So make sure you have your health care, whether through your company or you go through the Affordable Care Act that's provided. There are some really nice parts to this act, and a lot of it has to deal with pre-existing. They can't drop you anymore for pre-existing. Now, children can be carried up to 26 years of age instead of just 18. They can't impose lifetime benefits anymore. And preventative services. If you are covered by insurance, preventative services for women, we're talking mammograms and pap smears and things like that, are all covered. Immunization for children are all covered, and they're covered at 100%. You don't have to pay a copay or deductible. So your insurance takes care of that. So it's pretty nice. There was some changes in Medicare and Medicaid. And Medicaid, the state got to choose whether or not they wanted to handle it or let the government, and North Carolina chose to let the government. All right, let's talk a little bit about HIPAA. HIPAA was put in place to protect your information, basically. It's a privacy rule. We're looking at, making sure everybody is trained, that they have a HIPAA officer on site. And once you start working in healthcare, you'll be trained every year on HIPAA. It is so very important that we safeguard patient records, and that's what this deals with. We're looking at protected health information, and all that is your name, address, all your personal information. It also includes photographs, fingerprints, and if I'm not mistaken, covers all of your treatment and what you're there for, and just everything dealing with your visit or visits. You do have to give permission if any of your information is shared, such as if your information needs to be sent somewhere, you have to sign that consent when you first come in, that they can file your insurance, that that information can be transferred electronically, and it will include all this type of information too. The only time there's an exception to the HIPAA rules for release of records is a court order. If it's required as evidence, they don't have to have your approval. Excuse me. Workers' compensation cases, and that's because the insurance company, the employer, is responsible for your bill and what's going on, so they have a right to that information. There are some state-specific reasons why it may be exempt. It may be exempt for research if they usually black out all the information dealing with who you are, your name and that type of stuff, but your other information may need to be made available for research. This is this is a copy of what it looks like when you sign your disclosure, what type of information you are allowing to be released and who you're going to allow it to and for what purpose. And you do have to sign that, and it has to be witnessed. One thing that you need to remember with HIPAA, and this is very important, is psychotherapy notes. And these have an extra layer of protection, and it is taken out of all that information with the rest of your medical record. It's very close-knit. It's extremely difficult to get that information, and they want to keep it private and give the patient as much protection as possible. The HIPAA security rule deals with all the security measures, the internet, access to files. You'll notice when you're working in this field that your login access will only allow you to see certain things, and then also there's access controls for the entire system so that outside people cannot get into this, and then how are they going to handle any violations that do occur. So the big thing to remember with all this is don't share your password. Nobody should be able to get into your stuff. There's no need for them to. Each has their own individual password that gives them clearance to what they need. If they're wanting to get into something else, then they need to speak with their supervisor, because that may not be something they need access to. Now, if there is a breach with the security, they do have to send a notice to the patient. They have to send a notice to the media, next of kin, if the patient's deceased. Think about it when your information, you've heard in the news about your information being stolen from Target or some of the other stores, and they have to contact the person who was involved in the breach. They've notified the media to let them know. It's pretty much the same thing. Healthcare is just a little tighter, but you do have to inform everybody of what's going on when there is a breach. Now, of course, if there is any type of fraud and abuse that deals with HIPAA, there is all kinds of fines. Right now, it can be up to $1,000 or $10,000 per item. Criminal penalties are also there. Enforcing HIPAA, there's an Office for Civil Rights, Department of Justice, e-health standards, and Inspector General. Inspector General has the task of detecting fraud and abuse and reporting everything on there. And if it's a civil violation, the Office for Civil Rights is the ones that handle that. Well, that's a little information for you about this chapter. I hope that it helps. If you have any questions, please call me, email me, come see me, and I'll be glad to help you.